I'm going to throw you down a review on the Wolverine RMAX4 1000 limited edition. This is a 2022 model. We purchased new in 2022. Sticker price was something like $27,000, and then you pay your tax and all the other garbage. The goal for getting this guy was to get something as much Jeep-like as I could. So short wheelbase, 4 seats. Be able to use it like a truck if I needed to on the property. So the seats move really easy. It's one of the best features is that you can push the rear seats forward, and then you've got a full truck bed to use. And then for off-road use, it's basically got what you want. It's not your super fast desert blaster. It's not a turbo with 200 horsepower. You've got a normally aspirated liter engine that makes about 108 horsepower at sea level, I would assume. We live at 6,400 feet, and we're typically operating it at 8 to 10,000 feet. The county we live in here is 85% public land, BLM, Forest Service, and Colorado Parks and Rec. So we can easily get out and use this guy. This year in 2023, summer is the first time we've been out jamming it a bunch. Just got back from taking some friends out, so we had 4 people in it for the first time, doing a bunch of trail riding, some minor rock crawling in the area, and everything has always worked great on it. It does have a few quirks. I'll go over that, and I'll go over the highlights of what we got with this thing. So starting on the outside, you've got fully adjustable. I say fully adjustable. They're not technically fully adjustable. You don't have rebound adjustment controls that I know of, but you've got Fox shocks that are electronically adjustable from inside the cab. That's a feature with the limited edition, and that goes front and rear. You've got Warren Winch. This is the VRX 45 is what it looks like. Comes on the side-by-side, and this one came with a steel cable. That's one of the first things I did was ditch that and replace it with a synthetic line. I also added the snowplow attachment, and we use Warren's largest snowplow for this guy, which is kind of interesting because I bent the snowplow mount, so the mount that goes from here out to the plow, tweaked it all to hell and had to replace it. So that was one of the interesting things that happened over the winter, but it does plow well. Didn't use any chains, which means I had to carry a little bit more speed than I'd want to when plowing, and that's what ended up bending up the plow mount. You hit those big piles of snow, and next thing you know, you're stopped tweaking that plow mount around. There's those rear guys right there. So it is 4-wheel drive. Obviously you can run it 2-wheel drive. You have a front electronic locker. The rear is locked all the time. So it's just like a spool, solid diff. So when driving on the street, you will get a lot of tire scrubbing. That's something to be aware of. If you're doing a bunch of street driving, I think there's been some complaints online with people breaking CV joints. We don't do a whole lot of street driving, and when we do, it's typically on a highway to jump from one trail to another or get back to the trailer kind of thing. So we're just going in a straight line and hauling ass. We're not doing U-turns in the city. We've got a small town close to us, but we've got a highway between us and the town, which we can't operate this on. So we typically trailer it. The entire bottom of this guy is one big skid plate. As far as we know, we've not sustained any damage, and we've done some pretty hard hits doing some water crossings recently. So it is set up pretty good down here. It does have some rock rails as part of that. Seems to keep things off. I do think there's some aftermarket ones that'll come out even further, but haven't run into needing that. We did install the half windshield, and I did purchase the full glass windshield with the windshield wiper, but have not put that on yet. I just fully suit up for plowing snow, and then we keep it open for the rest of the time. Did install the new, I forget what these are called, roll pack from Rotopack. So they did fit right on there. Each one is 1.5 gallons. So if we're out in the middle of nowhere and we're running out of fuel, we got enough to at least get back. We'll be adding a spare tire at some point. I gotta decide if I'm gonna stay with these tires or not. And then I'll get a matching set when we wear these out. All right, inside, you got a super basic LCD screen. You can see we're at 375 miles. We've had this a year. It had a lot of downtime over the winter. Our winters are pretty long here in Colorado at this elevation on the Front Range. But getting it out and getting a lot of use out of it now. You've got pretty simple controls. You've got your two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, and your diff lock. Diff lock is just for the front. So once you put it in four-wheel drive, you're getting full power front rear. And obviously the front is not locked. It does limit your turning radius some in standard four-wheel drive and severely limits your turning radius if you lock the diff. The diff lock is extremely slow. So that's something to be aware of. Think ahead. If you think you're going to have to use it, you need to engage it and wait for it to engage and then go ahead and use it. I've used it a couple times just playing with it. Typically, you don't need it. Your lights, you've got standard running lights up front. In the off position, you've got your headlights and your high beams. And what I did with the big light bar that you could see in the earlier video was to wire in the light bar on a relay. So it gets direct battery power, but that relay is triggered by the high beam being activated. So once you flip on the high beam, you get full lights with the light bar coming on. Your other drive control is your Sport Trail Crawl. Only thing that does is changes your pedal responsiveness. So on crawl, you get a very slow to respond accelerator. And in Sport, you get a quicker to respond accelerator. Doesn't change your power, output, anything like that. It's not changing your torque curve. It's just making your pedal slow to respond. That's so when you're hitting bumps and you're bouncing around, you're not constantly changing the engine RPM. You can hold it pretty steady in the crawl setting. Here's your switch for your suspension, and it's just basically your compression setting, so how stiff it is, and it probably changes from comfort to medium to firm. Each step is maybe 5% different, would be my guess. This is not functional. I was going to go ahead and put it in and then change my mind and just wired it with the relay to the high beam. Figured if we're going to turn the high beam on, you want all the lights anyways. The limited edition comes with this little Android tablet that's built in. The nicest part about it is you get some additional vehicle information. So you get your voltage, engine temp, what gear you're in, speed by GPS. You can do some mapping, but the mapping software is really bad. I don't know if you can add programs like Onyx to be able to use it on here yet. I haven't messed with it, so we may do that. The SSV stereo is pretty cool. It's got 4 speakers in it as a limited edition, and you can Bluetooth it to your phone, listen to music if you're out on the trail. They do have a supplemental subwoofer that goes underneath the driver's seat, as well as 2 more speakers you can put in the back to make a total of 6 overhead speakers, which is pretty nice. The winch works well. I actually use it to secure it in the trailer because typically we're not going very far. And I have this big bar that mounts on the front of our trailer for the motorcycles. So you drive it up, bump it into the bar, and then I just hook the winch to the bar and tension the front end down, and we're off and running. It takes me maybe 90 seconds to load and unload this thing. I don't use straps otherwise, unless we're gonna go like get on the big interstate and go somewhere like Moab. Got a USB port on the inside. Doesn't look like that's really waterproof. You can say I just washed it. It's full of suds, but that is what it is. It is a CVT. You get your low, high, neutral, reverse. That's it. No shifting gears. CVT works pretty good. Keeps you in your RPM range, proper RPM range all the time for proper torque. And let's see, you got your auxiliary input. Like if you didn't have Bluetooth, you could connect a hard connect a phone in here. You got a typical cigarette lighter adapter over here. an adjustable grab handle for your passenger, an O-ring sealed glove box, O-ring sealed center console, and your little cup holders. And then you got all these accessory switches you could put in if you wanted to. I don't know what people would do. I'll plan to put a ham radio in here. We were just recently on a trail in Marble, Colorado, where somebody flipped their UTV, and one person was killed on scene, and then another was critically injured, needed to be flown out, and 2 others were taken by ground ambulance. We didn't have any cell service at all to get out, so while we were stuck on the trail behind them while the rescue was going on, we couldn't get out to family to let them know that, hey, we're going to be multiple hours late. Here's what the story is. We are fine. So I'll be mounting a Yaesu ham radio with the remote head. You can put the head in here, and then we'll do a little speaker in here. The mic will be mounted underneath the seat, and then you'll have easy access to communicate with others if need be. Let's see here. What else is going on the inside? You got a little cubby hole down here, and your doors seem like, oh, I forgot the 4 speakers, I guess. 2 are in the front doors, and then 2 are overhead. The doors seem like kind of an afterthought. The quality's not great on them. The latch is kind of hinky, but they're nice to have. They're going to keep your leg from falling out. Another real nice to have thing is this shoulder block. So when you're driving, it's attached to the seat. I can't accidentally, roll my upper body out of the cab of the truck if we were to tip this guy. So you can see it right there. It's also on the rear. I think it's a good addition. You get your only rear mirror right there. So nothing on the sides, nothing to get broken off. You can add those, obviously. And you just got to look at your driving conditions and whether or not you think you'd get them lost. There are drain holes in the floor to help wash things out, which is pretty nice. You do get water intrusion in the floor during water crossings. It's just not sealed very well. Let's take a seat in the rear seat. So you can see the door is real narrow. So this is a little tough. If you look at the reviews of these style side-by-sides, Kawasaki makes one, everybody kind of makes one like this. I think this is probably the best of the ones I've seen for rear seating. You have a functional bed if you want it, and you also have functional rear seats that aren't just for children. So we had my wife and her friend in the back. My wife's 5'7", her friend is close to 6 foot. They rode back here for several hours yesterday. No complaints. There is enough leg room for that. So I slide in, so I put my foot in, step in, then I can close the door. But you can see how tight that door opening is, and how basically it's as big as my foot to get through. Close my door, and now I'm seated basically like in a roller coaster position. So same amount of space you would have in a roller coaster at Disneyland. You've got a grab bar. You could use this as a grab bar as well, but this has some plastic housing that makes it a little bit loose. This guy works good for a grab bar. And then you've got, I think the seats are pretty comfortable, and the seat belts hold you in very well. So once you're belted in, you're really in good space. You do have 4 larger cup holders back here. This is the engine cowling. So you got your Lear engine sitting right here. The head's right underneath this. So this whole area for the rear people gets hot. And you can also see my legs are not straight or heavily stretched out. I do have a place to put my feet down there that's angled. Helps me keep myself in my seat, which is real nice. But my inside leg is twisted in. So if you're putting Meemaw back here and she's had a hip replacement, or somebody with a knee replacement, or somebody with some knee issues, you may run into a problem with their comfort level because of the angle it puts their inside leg on. You do have room to put a decent sized cooler in here between the 2 rear seat passengers, and then you've got places for tools, gear to go in the back when the seats are in the front position. So let me show you real quick how this seat moves forward. This seat is released just by pulling on it. There is a grab handle, and doing it from this angle is kind of weird. So my hand is reaching underneath. I pull up on the release, and I move the seat forward. Once I get it all the way forward, there you go. That's the locked position. So you can lock it there, or you can lock it right here. So there's like a couple inches different, or you move it to the rear and you lock it there. When it's locked forward like this, I would say you've got 28 inches or so of truck bed length, essentially. If you wanted to, I'm sure you could figure out how to pull these out completely and use it as a two-seater with a full bed, but then you're going to be dropping stuff on the floor up here if you load up cargo and stuff. So that's something to think about. But if you're just taking 2 people, you're going to go like on an off-road camping trip and you need more space, you could pull these out completely and then put them back in whenever you want. It looks like they probably just have 4 bolts that take the track out. The whole thing comes out and you're good to go. Seat belts will actually tuck underneath the floor. There's a little guy here, so you can get full flat floor. You tuck your seat belts away when you move it forward. So it's pretty good design as far as that goes. You know, you get a lot of versatility out of this thing, and that's what we're looking for. So let me see me get out of here. Propping with my right arm and then stepping out. That's it. So get a quick view on this. This thing is 62 inches wheel edge to wheel edge. So we have width restrictors on our trails here in certain areas, and to get this through a 62-inch width restrictor, you'll see the tires bulging outside of that. So it's a little bit of wiggle worm to get it through the width restrictor, and it helps if the tires are wet, it'll slip right through. But otherwise it takes a few passes to kind of get it nudged directly in the middle, and then you can squeak through. But it does fit a 62-inch width restrictor. It is very tall. So unlike a lot of the other 4-seaters that are very long, this one is very tall. So this is very short wheelbase, makes it nice on the trails for getting around where you want to get to. However, it is pretty tall. I think the roll bar is even kind of excessively tall, where it doesn't need to be. But it just fits in our standard trailer. Let me show you that. So that's our trailer right there. That's a 7.5 foot wide trailer. So the wheel wells are a little bit on the inside, 16 feet long, and then I think it's 6.5 feet tall. Just gets in there like you have an inch or two to spare at best. So not much room if you want to lift your guy or put bigger tires on it. All right, kind of in summary, without getting this thing too long, I think for the money, all these things are overpriced. No matter which one you buy, you just have to figure out what format you want and decide if you want to pay that kind of money or not for what you're going after. For a short wheelbase 4-seater that has the ability to do truck-like stuff without having a truck bed hanging off the back of it all the time, I think this is about as good as you can get. The power's good. With just a couple people in it, it will run 80 miles an hour. It's a little squirrely, and then the suspension feels kind of soft. On the trail, even in the soft setting, the suspension feels kind of stiff. So I don't know how to fix that. One of the big issues you have with this kind of wheelbase setup is you've got very short shocks on the rear because they're underneath the seating position, whereas on the much longer wheelbase ones that are more race setup, they look like a trophy truck essentially. All your rear suspension is out beyond the rear seats, and then you can run long travel just like you got in the front. You can run long travel suspension in the rear, so that affects it a lot, and that's just something to know about these short wheelbase trucks. They're great for the format that you want, but you're not getting maximum off-road comfort or maximum off-road ability. One of the things you do get is very good breakover angles because you've got a very short wheelbase. So that's something to keep in mind. You do get that benefit, but you're not getting the ultimate ride off-road. So if you want to do 50, 60 miles an hour on off-road trails, this probably is not what you want. If you want to crawl around, treat it like a Jeep kind of thing, I think this thing is really nice. It's got some good features, offers good flexibility, and it's a Yamaha. I've always been happy with Yamahas in the past motorcycles, so that's a plus for me. Maintenance is a little time consuming. Doing the oil takes quite a while. There's nothing difficult about it. Fairly easy to do the front rear differentials and the transmission, but the engine oil is kind of time consuming. That's as far as I've got into the maintenance on it with that many miles, and we'll see where we go from there. But all in all, it's a pretty cool setup for a short wheelbase rig. Just know what you're getting into before you get it, and don't expect it to be the ultimate off-road vehicle, but it will get you and 3 friends around in fairly good comfort and allow you to carry some gear. It's been 100% reliable. Only issue is it doesn't like to start. And I don't know if that has to do with our altitude. We're currently at 6,200 feet. So it never starts on the first try. You crank it up, it dies. Crank it up again, it'll run. When it's cold, it might take me 6 to 8 times to get it to run. It stays in our shop in the winter, and the shop is heated. It's heated at 45, 50 degrees, and it still needs to be started multiple times. That's a complaint all over the internet. I don't know if anybody has a flash for the ECU that might fix that. My guess is it's probably running too rich at this altitude and just can't get started when it first is cold. Once you've got it warmed up, not a problem, perfectly fine, runs all the time, no big deal. That's it.